Now, welcome. So, Euro 2025 reaches its conclusion on Sunday evening, 5 o'clock Irish time. It will be Spain against England in the final in Basel. We are going to talk to Rachel O'Sullivan of Girls on the Ball and Miguel Delaney of the London Independent. They are both over in Switzerland. Rachel's been there all tournament, Miguel over back and forth. And, well, England in particular has major tournament fever. Once again, TV audience is off the charts. Our football coverage is in association with Sky Sports. You can experience more exclusive live sport than anywhere else, including at least 215 live Premier League games from next season. There's also every F1 race. There's been the golf majors, obviously, Premier League darts, the Lions Tour, second test on Saturday, and much more. You can watch Sky Sports on Sky, or you can stream it on Now. Happy to say Alana Kanan is here in the studio. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Part of the Irish Independent Inc., both the Indo Sport podcast and the written word.
That's it, double jobbing.
Which is your favourite department to work for?
Oh, okay, that's putting on the spot there. I mean, I'm going to have to say the podcast in this environment.
Really? The print guys are listening right now. So, England against Spain on Sunday. This thing is heating up very nicely. You just sent me on a piece about the TV figures over in England, and they're kind of suitably amazing again, whereby the win during the week, the semi-final win against Italy, peak audience of 10.2 million around the time Chloe Kelly was knocking in the rebound. But the average was 8 million right the way through. That is ITV's biggest audience of the year. And by a distance, their highest average of 16 to 34-year-olds watching TV. Now, a fair proportion of those, particularly in the lower range, don't watch TV ever. So I would think that is great news for the game at large. You know, it's amazing. And it was striking. We were seeing the different venues where groups of people were watching together. And it's so like on a par now with the men's game. It's such a quantum leap in the last decade.
Yeah, especially I think since the last Euros outing, people will remember, and it was in England in 2022. I think that had a major effect. It kind of brought these people to the forefront, and as you say, put them on their TV screens, and they're there to stay now. Like a lot of that team are very well marketed. You know them, they're familiar, so it's easy for people to buy in then once they are kind of familiar with things. That's why it's interesting on the Irish point of view. I'd love to see the RTE figures, because it is a little bit tricky for maybe the casual football fan to buy in like that when they don't have that kind of hook, with us not being in it. Another reminder, but it is brilliant to see the interest in it, and you can see that reflected in the attendance is true.
I was out for a walk last night. There was a baby that needed cajoling, and so there was a little bit first half of the game on Thursday night, and sorry, this sounds creepy, like I'm looking into people's houses. I'm not, but you just, you're walking by. Game was on a lot of people's houses, so I suspect the figures are pretty good. When it gets to this time, it's good live sport. It's on terrestrial television. I just think it finds an audience. Yeah,
especially the quarterfinals proved to be very dramatic. You had a lot of penalties involved as well, and I suppose like you can question sometimes. Maybe people were talking about, especially the England-Sweden one, that maybe there was a bit of a quality piece there. But I mean, no matter what, there always be the drama element to that, and you see the quality on different parts of the games as well. Especially even last night, you saw Bonamati, that angle she got in to get Spain the win over Germany 1-0. And interestingly, afterwards, she was talking with the press, and she was saying that Berger, who has been fantastic for Germany, the keeper all the way through, she had studied that at that angle. She always seems to be a little bit off the post. So it just shows you the brilliance to be able to spot it, first of all, but to execute it is a different level again.
Yeah. Two-time Ballon d'Or winner. She was very ill at the start of the tournament.
Yeah. So just before the tournament, she actually had meningitis and she was hospitalised. It was a fairly serious case, I guess, for her. So that comeback story, to actually be able to be fit and firing on all cylinders as she seems to be now, is amazing.
On the penalties thing, because that garnered a lot of attention at the time, the England-Sweden penalty shootout in the quarterfinals, whereby it's classed as the worst penalty shootout in history. So 14 taken and only 5 scored. That is not good, obviously. And then there were pieces like, does the penalty spot need to be moved closer, this kind of stuff. And Jonathan Wilson was writing that in the WSL, penalties are scored just over 90% of the time. And Germany-France of the 14-12 were scored. So I think it's just a really terrible shootout and nothing more than that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, especially in the women's game, anytime anything like that happens, there's nearly a direct thing of like, oh, this is the women's game, where it's like, no, that's just that game. Really, like sometimes it does happen. And then, yeah, if you did watch the Germany shootout, those penalties were amazing. So it's just testament to, I suppose, the pressure that everyone was under in those scenarios. And then if you looked at that one, the Chloe Kelly penalty in that one was brilliant. Lucy Bronze as well really stepped up to the plate. Now last night the night before you could say that Chloe Kelly's one wasn't so good, but again, they got away with it in the end, as England tend to have done throughout this tournament.
Yeah, I suppose that's the kind of theme going into the final, is that Spain, with the exception of Germany the other night, who made it difficult for them, but Spain have kind of breezed through opposition, scored lots of goals, whereas England, getting away with it is kind of the view. I mean, lost to France early and then got through the group stages and then like penalties, and then against Italy the other night, I mean, it's last gasp and it's the bench coming to the rescue 2 games in a row now. So there's a sense on paper that Spain should be too good for them. England sort of clinging to the fact that finals can be curious beasts. That's kind of how it's poised ahead of Sunday.
Yeah, and obviously they'll have it in the back of their head, the World Cup final, Spain really kind of outclassed them there. But it'll be interesting to see how it does play out, especially given Sarina Wiegman's intro, I guess, to this tournament. There was a lot of chat around what her relationship was like with the players, given, you know, Mary Earps, Fran Kirby, Millie Bright had all stepped away or not travelled for various different reasons. So there was kind of that question mark over her. But I mean, as you say, they've got the results, and when it comes to the tournament, that's all that really matters, especially for her point of view. Like, this is her 5th international tournament final in a row.
Yeah, it's insane.
And for man or woman, that hasn't been done before. So it's just a testimony to, I suppose, the quality of manager she is as well. I
haven't seen too much other kind of too many other reports during the tournament suggesting the team and her don't get on. I mean, the Earps one was kind of, well, you're dropped, and she kind of said, okay, well, I'm done. And Millie Wright, I think, was more of a personal issue. So I don't think there is a... No,
it kind of seems like one of those ones where a lot was made of it at the time, and maybe that wasn't necessarily the case at all. Like, I mean, who's to say nobody's actually in there? But I think, like, you can even see the different players coming through. Obviously, Chloe Kelly has made quite a lot of the headlines, but Alessia Russo has performed really well for them throughout the tournament. Then you have Michelle Adjemang, only 19. Her impact.
She's kind of the superstar born this tournament now.
This is it, yeah. She only has 4 appearances, and she's made every one of them count so far. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes on Sunday. Obviously, you have the bit of a clash there, the All-Ireland final 3:30, and then this straight afterwards, 5 o'clock. So hopefully the first one doesn't go to extra time.
Yeah, 5's a little early for peak, isn't it?
Yeah, this is it, yeah.
Why not 7, 8 o'clock, I wonder?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because even talking about the final, it's in St. Jacob's Park, and there's 38,500 capacity there, which is interesting in contrast to Euro 2022. Obviously in England there, we saw that final take place at Wembley. 87,000 eventually turned up at that. So yeah, it's interesting. Obviously an earlier time, less capacity crowd available to them, but I'm sure the atmosphere will stand up nonetheless.
Yeah, and that's actually been, before we get to Rachel and Miguel, that's been one of the discussion points around this tournament. Certainly in advance, people looked at the size of the venues and they weren't so sure, 38,000 being the largest. And again, as you said, Wembley was, I think, 87 turned up for that final, and that tournament started at Old Trafford where there were 74,000. Now, it wasn't like those attendances were replicated across the tournament, but there were big bookends, and there was a suggestion, oh, is this like a lack of ambition for the Euros this year, or how's this going to work? Looking at a few pieces since, there's a sense that almost the benefit of the slightly smaller stadiums, we're done, big stadiums still, a lot of people, the atmospheres have been really good, fewer empty seats, and maybe you might like the final to be a slightly bigger one, but they've kind of pitched in a quite a good level here for good atmospheres, big time atmospheres.
Yeah, 100% agree. Even in an Irish context, we consistently see that. So kind of Tala, obviously it got the extension there recently, and that's been brilliant. But if there was sort of a medium ground between Tala and the Aviva, that would be a brilliant place to see the women's national team play, although it doesn't exist for us just at the minute. But yeah, as you say, the last time around, the aggregate attendance overall was 574,000. And in Switzerland, that record was broken with 2 games to go. So that just shows you maybe average overall has been better attendances and not just, as you say, bumped up by the 2 big stadiums bookended at either side.
Yeah. A little bit like the ladies' Gaelic football here, where they often get a 40, 50
exactly
thousand or croker, and that can cover a multitude earlier in the tournament. So it's kind of hard to look past Spain, really. We'll see what the guys think in a moment, and there's some quibbles over like defensively how solid are they. But I mean, any game I've watched, Spain, the quality of their football has been a joy to watch, and it's just been markedly better, I think, than everyone around them.
Plus, it'd also be nice to see them win after the World Cup 2023 saga, I guess, that followed there, giving Rubiales and the kiss with Jenny Hermoso and all the rest. So I think it would be nice to see them get over the line. Equally, I think a lot of people are familiar with the England team just through the WSL, and I suppose a lot of them are very front-facing in the media as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who eventually comes out on top.
Yeah. By the way, I was just having a glance to see list of previous winners. I had been sleeping on this. Germany from 1989 to 2013 won this thing 8 times out of 9. Oh, that's a horror show that is. 6 in a row from 1995 to 2013, and then 8 out of 9 if you include West Germany 1989. Jeez, I hadn't quite fully appreciated that.
Yeah, and I'm sure...
Not ideal.
Yeah, it's something the guys will touch on, I'm sure. But yeah, in recent years, you have seen more investment in the women's game, and that is continuing, and it really depends who's putting their money where now at this stage, and you can really see the gap between who is and who isn't. So yeah, it's all coming to the fore there as well.
Okay, nice one. Let's talk to Rachel and Miguel. So let's talk Euros. Happy to say Rachel O'Sullivan from Girls on the Ball is with us. Hey Rachel, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well. And Miguel Delaney of the London Independent is with us. Miguel, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad.
So, Miguel, you are in the English camp at a castle, is about as much as I've ascertained from our little chat there before coming on air. Where are you, Rachel?
I'm not in a castle, sadly. I'm in a cafe on the outskirts of Zurich.
Okay. Rachel, you have been out there the whole time?
I have, yes, since the very first game. Actually, since before that, yeah. It's been a long month.
Yeah. So, has it been a great success? From afar, it looks like it's gone really, really well. What are your overall impressions of the Euros 2025?
Yes, I would definitely deem it a success. I was definitely one who was a bit concerned about the size of many of the stadia before this tournament. And actually, I think they've done a very good job of filling them majority of the time. They yesterday announced that they had beat the record of Euros attendances at this tournament with a game to go. So, I definitely deem it a success. And I think the Swiss team as well, making history and getting to the knockout stages helped for sure.
Yeah. Where are you on stadium size, Miguel?
They've probably got the balance just about right. Although I think they have been lacking for some of the maybe potentially bigger games. But it's generally been well run. I mean, this isn't just true of the tournament, I suppose, but it's one of the striking things about Switzerland, especially having done Germany last year and maybe having some concerns about Euro 2028 and the 2026 World Cup. Everything works so well, especially the trains. As we were just saying there, the fact that they've got the attendances, or it's been a record attendance even before the final, I think is symbolic and significant, and points to how well it's been run. It's some of the games, the odd empty seat, but generally everything's been kind of max attendances, especially for England and Spain, and they've probably just about got it right, other than a few quibbles. Yeah.
In terms of standout moments so far, Rachel, you've been at, I think, 18 games. Give us a little flavour.
Probably quite a few different ones. There's been like big moments. I think probably the first game, Switzerland-Norway, was pretty special. I think seeing Leah Walti lead her team out and seeing actually how emotional both captains were. Etta Hegerberg back captaining her side was pretty special. I think there's been a number of teams that maybe we didn't expect to play as well as they did play very well. You know, I think seeing Italy win their quarterfinal and the reaction to that was very special. Their fans were absolutely delighted. The players very emotional. So lots of maybe little moments that might kind of go under the radar. You know, there's been some unbelievable saves. Seeing that Anne-Catherine Berger save live, I think probably wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it live. So yeah, little moments like that have been very special. They're the kind of things you like to pick out in major tournaments.
Yeah. It's funny, like different things kind of punch through in the mainstream media and capture attention. So obviously they tend to be like more negative. It's just the nature of the world. It's the nature of media. So we've had the situation with the English defender, Jess Carter. She released a statement through the tournament in effect to say, I think it was after the Sweden game in particular, that a lot of the abuse she's been experiencing in Tone has been racial abuse. Every fan entitled to their opinion on performance and result. I think that's okay, but not okay to target someone's appearance or race. As a result, I'll be stepping back from social media, leaving it to the team to deal with. The Lionesses released a statement. Keir Starmer gets involved as well. No place for racism in football or anywhere in society. Miguel, this is like just, unlike the bingo card of stories that will arise during a tournament now, this pretty much is nailed on.
Yeah, and I suppose it's the inevitable and unfortunate flip side of the growth of the women's game that you're just going to be exposed to, rather than having kind of more of a self-contained audience, which was probably more the case up till 2019. You're exposed to a bigger audience, which means many more societal problems. And I mean, throughout that, I was here on Sunday when Lucy Braun's did the press conference after that statement was released. And like my mind immediately went back to say Euro 2020 and what Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka and Jadon Sancho were subjected to. And like just the way suddenly football is thrown into this. And this is the thing, once a game gets bigger, it shouldn't be the case, but you're dealing with forces well outside football. Ultimately, say with the Rashford case, one of the guys that was jailed was one teenager who just had basically too much time in his hands. I mean, that was what his solicitor said. And like when it's so in a world that's already, I suppose, where social media has grown to what it is, where, you know, Musk owns X/Twitter, and there's less moderation, where that has been kind of linked to where Musk's takeover has been linked to Trump's re-election. And then as a response to that, Mark Zuckerberg kind of reduces moderation or changes moderation on Meta. Suddenly, like, this sort of stuff kind of accelerates. And yeah, it's an unfortunate effect, but it's the world we're in, rather than necessarily having to do with actually the football itself.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of personality is Jess Carter, do you know, Rachel?
She's a very well-liked character. I think the fact that she was willing to make a statement in tournament shows that she's quite brave and quite willing to speak out. She said, look, if this stops one person from sending a racist message, then it's worth doing. And I think that says a lot about her character. She's quite calm on the ball and quite popular in camp. So you could see that from the support of the team. She's a popular player amongst the fans, even if she's, struggled in tournament. I don't think she needs people to tell her that. She's aware of that herself. But yeah, I think it was quite fitting during the Italy game, in the 16th minute, all the fans stood up. She got the biggest cheer when her name was read out on the subs bench before the game. And then, of course, when she came on in the dying minutes, a huge roar as well. So I think she very much feels that support.
Yeah, okay. In terms of this final, then we have on Sunday, it's going to be 5 o'clock Irish time. It's going to be in Basel, 38,000 capacity stadium. I guess that's maybe the one where you kind of would like that bigger Wembley-sized stadium, as we've seen before. But it's going to be thronged and... just an amazing finale. The two semi-finals during the week were very tense affairs, went down to the wire. We'll start with England for a second. So to catch everyone up on their tournament, or to sum it up, they started off with that loss to France, that 2-1 loss. They were 2-0 down at half-time. Typically slow starters in the tournament, England of late, and then bounced back with a 4-0 win against Netherlands, beat Wales 6-1, and on they went. The penalties against Sweden in the quarterfinal, followed by the win against Italy. So, Rachel, they're a curious team to work out at the moment. There's obviously a theme of substitutes off the bench saving the day a little bit. How are England looking to you?
Probably not at their best. I think they're aware of that. I think it's been maybe a tournament of ups and downs. I think because it's England, people tend to focus on the downs. At the end of the day, they were in the group of death, which everyone spoke about pre-tournament. And yet when they lost to France, it seemed to be the end of the world. So it wasn't a huge surprise. I think the manner of the defeat to France, the manner of the first half performance against France, and the manner of the first half performance against Sweden is probably what frustrated fans the most, because that inconsistent form has maybe been a little bit of a theme, because they can play so well when they get it right. But then at times they can look like they haven't played together before. And I think that's potentially what frustrates fans. I think perhaps the resilience, the determination that they've shown will give people a lot of confidence, I guess. I think, the substitutes thing isn't a new thing for Sarina Wiegman. The substitutes played a very big part in Euro 2022 as well. And I think it shows the trust she has in the bench and the depth that England have. It's definitely a weapon. I do think perhaps the way in which the subs have been used the last couple of games has raised a few heart rates, particularly the Italy game. She definitely left it very late and then got to the point where kind of threw the attacking kitchen sink at the match. It worked just about. But I think the fact that you're seeing, the youngest player on the pitch and the oldest player on the pitch getting goals in key moments perhaps touches on that depth and its importance.
Yeah. Chloe Kelly, Michelle Ajmang, she's only 19. So I think, 4 caps and she scored 3 goals and they're all biggies?
Yes, Michelle Ajmang's she was arguably a bit of a rogue choice. I think people weren't sure if she would come. She had the under-19s Euros that she missed out on because she got called up in the senior squad, which shows you the level of player that she is. She came on against Belgium when England were trailing to Belgium and scored in 40 seconds on her debut. And has, came in the France game, caused problems in the France game, plays well when England switched to a 3-5-2 where there's two attackers up front. She really does well in that kind of setup and has definitely had an impact in games. I think her composure on the ball is frightening for her age. It's not just her ability to score goals, but her hold-up play, her game intelligence. She's definitely one to watch in the future.
Yeah. It was never a penalty, by the way, Chloe Kelly's, which scored the rebound.
I don't know, actually.
I'm sure if that was an Ireland game and if that happened to Ireland, you wouldn't be saying that.
No, honestly, it was not a penalty. It's never.
It was a tired decision though from Italy. You could tell, they were exhausted.
What a stupid thing to do. Yeah. You don't wrap your arms around a player in that moment. That was just silly to give the referee a decision in that moment.
Yeah.
What have you made of them, Miguel?
I think they've actually been dreadful. See, the thing with England is we're talking about one of the squads with the highest number of high quality individuals in the tournament, maybe after Spain. I don't think they're as good as 2023 actually. But despite that, as a collective, I think they've played beneath themselves. They're less than the sum of their parts. It's like Wiegman still hasn't, which is amazing given we're talking about such a good manager. And there's been such a contrast actually in how I think she responds to problems within games, to how she's starting games, in which it feels like she's barely got her starting 11 right in this tournament. And just the substitute one is interesting because it's obviously quite a bit of a helter-skelter approach, but she's been talking to us about how she almost specifically does it because she wants to affect the psychology of a game, that almost the later you leave it, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but the later you leave it, you can actually kind of unsettle the opposition, and it definitely happened against Italy. But yeah, and from that, despite the fact they've got so much quality, there's I was watching that Italy game. I was at the match. I was at both semi-finals, and even throughout the second half of that Italy game, when they did begin to up the tempo, it was their only solution to anything was basically to go out wide. For kind of what almost became kind of speculative crosses or hopeful long shots. And the long shots, both actually in football, either desperate crosses like that or long shots are usually a sign of a team panicking. Now, I know obviously the theme has been about resolve and resilience, and that's definitely there. I think, funnily, Wiegman's one of her great qualities has actually been a little bit of an echo of Gareth Southgate. And I think she knows how to build a spirit in a team and a culture in a team, and that manifests in moments like that. But at the same time, even the kind of some of their responses in this tournament have been, I think, just almost kind of their superior technical quality manifesting rather than necessarily acting too great about the team. And I do wonder about this. I'm not sure if Rachel agrees with this, but I was at 2023 and I felt 2023, the World Cup, the concentration of quality and kind of the competitive balance between the teams was really high. It was a really strong tournament in that sense. I haven't felt this quite so much about Euro 2025, where I think this kind of the quality of the teams is more staggered, and that to a certain degree, England are in the final just because of pure individual quality and and their spirit, rather than necessarily actually being a good team in terms of an actual collective. Because every single game I come away thinking Wiegman has so much to figure out here, and then they bundle through. And like luck does have a part in tournaments as well. That can never be overlooked. I mean, they finished second in the group and ended up being on the kind of easier side of the draw. I mean, as much progress as Italy have made in getting to the semi-final, they did overachieve to get there. And I think they were kind of like pushing themselves to the limit to get that far, as we saw in the closing stages. And now, they get to a final against, the best team in the world, Spain. And suddenly it is possible that suddenly a lot of these issues manifest, but then it is one game.
Yeah. Rachel, did you agree on that overall point on the concentration of talent 2 years ago versus now?
I think the quality has increased in Europe. I think we're seeing a lot of fatigued teams. I think we've seen that since the World Cup. We've seen some rogue results across Europe. No one really setting the world alight at the moment. And I think perhaps we've seen that to an extent in this Euros. Yes, Spain have won every game, but I mean, this idea that England have had an easier route to the final than Spain, it's quite funny given they came out of the group of death and Spain played Switzerland in the quarterfinal. The first difficult team Spain had to face was Germany, whereas England's first game was France. So, you can argue it both ways, I think. But I do think, there's been some teams that haven't turned up. That happens in tournaments. I think what surprised us about that World Cup was the teams that perhaps we didn't expect to do well did very well on the world stage and really upped the quality in that respect. But I do think there have been teams that have overperformed, and Switzerland being one of them, Italy being one of them. Many pegged Italy as the dark horses of this tournament, and I think they grew in this tournament. Despite losing 3-1 to Spain, I thought they had a very good game plan up until that kind of final few minutes of the game. So it varies.
Yeah. And on Wiegman, it's kind of extraordinary when you consider she's the first manager in international football to reach the final of a major tournament for 5 straight tournaments running, going back to the Netherlands in 17 at the Euros and then the World Cup final, and on she's continued with England. I mean, that kind of puts her in an echelon almost above criticism. Is she getting much criticism, Rachel, or questions about the way the team is playing?
Yes, of course. This is England. Of course she's getting criticism. 5 finals in a row isn't good enough. 3 major finals in a row for England isn't good enough. Doesn't matter if they play well, if they play badly. There's definitely criticism at every opportunity, which I find fascinating as someone who's not English. I'm just like, you're in a third final. Can you not just be pleased about that at least? It doesn't happen to very many teams.
Sure. Who's leading the charge on that, the criticism?
I mean, it comes from fans. It comes from some media as well. I think it's England, right? There's every opportunity to talk about negative stuff when it's there. It's definitely going to be blown up. But in some points, there's sometimes some hyperbole. Sometimes it's warranted. I think sometimes it's not. I understand in major tournaments, that's when you've got that microscope on top of you. And if it's not perfect, it is going to get discussed. Wiegman has a contract until 2027. I think she's absolutely earned the right to decide if and when she leaves England. And I think, getting to, yes, there is luck involved, but I think getting to 3 major finals in a row with this team isn't luck.
And how does she tend to react to questions which are a little bit spiky?
Doesn't like them. Who does? She's quite a blunt manager. That's the Dutch in her, I think. But she doesn't like having that kind of criticism. Understandably, I don't think many managers do. But I think she's probably been here long enough with England to know how to expect it and what to expect from journalists, particularly at major tournaments, because you then tend to have more media covering the game that doesn't normally cover England fixtures, and perhaps she comes up against some questions that she might not normally get of a regular England fixture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Miguel, you're back and forth. I know we were just earlier on touching on the viewing figures, which continue to be kind of sensational. Like even on even on Tuesday night, ITV 10.2 million were watching when Chloe Kelly scored. They had an average of 8 million. And for and you can imagine the executives frothing here at the line. The highest audience of the year for 16 to 34-year-olds. It's like, oh my God. So I mean, the interest is really there when at these major tournaments in such a kind of concrete way now.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed the Club World Cup as well. I was at the Spain game last night and talking to some of the Spanish media, and so Spain, Switzerland had a higher audience in the Champions League final. Now maybe that's not a surprise in the country that's obsessed with Madrid and Barcelona. But yeah, I mean, it is the one, all of that and that mass interest as well. And I think it's striking with England as well, how I think this has been true of all three tournaments where they've reached the final now, where they've really grown as they've gone on. Euro 2022, I think that really exploded from the quarterfinals more than the group stage, similar in 2023, and similar now actually, because we notice it online as well. In the group stage, there wasn't much of a response to what we're writing, yet by the quarterfinal against Sweden, that just it's doing amazing numbers. But I do think this kind of maybe translates into something bigger here that is connected to the criticism. Like England, obviously there's still so much work to do. It's the same with Spain, but relatively speaking, we're talking about two countries that are now powerhouses in the women's game, and that's not just about kind of interest, but it's also numbers and investments. And I think it's where it feeds into maybe this question of whether three finals is good enough, because like since 2016 to 19. I'm doing a piece in this for tomorrow, as you can probably tell, because we're talking about two countries, basically, two infrastructures, really. Spain, 3 finals in 3 years across men's and women's, obviously, and going back to kind of 2008 and kind of this landmark year in Spanish international football. And for England, it's 5 finals in 4 years across men's and women's. And all of this is translation of the amount their two federations have been investing. In Spain's case, it's maybe not as direct, obviously, because there's been so much debate, not debate really, so much rightful criticism about how its federation has treated the women's game. But Spain is a bit different because, like, I've been speaking to people who work in UEFA and National Association development about this over the last 2 weeks. Where Spain is really different is the amount of public spaces it provides to play football. Like if you go anywhere in Spain, any town, what you will see is kids from the age of 6 who have a kind of a football salad pitch, basically a 5-a-side pitch. So basically from that age, there's kids getting a lot of touches on the ball. And it was described to me by someone in UEFA, it's like learning a language. If you have that from the age of kind of 5, 6, you kind of internalize it at a much deeper level. Yeah. So it's quite, or suddenly Spain it's almost kind of a modern spin on something quite old fashioned in street football. Spain organically developing these kind of like so many kids, boys and girls, with just this almost, what it becomes an innate talent, just this natural affinity with kind of technique, how to touch the ball. Well, England is a bit different. It's a bit more top down, which obviously since 2016-19, they've invested a lot of money in infrastructure, in grassroots coaching. And while I think it's possible England might see a gap after this tournament, because there are some concerns about the talent level coming through, in 10, 15 years' time, that there should be another explosion of talent. But yeah, so we're talking about two countries that are producing almost, or have produced, a critical mass of quality, whereas a lot of the rest of the game has either, like in the case of Germany, talking to people in UEFA, they're a bit worried about development in Germany. They feel Germany have been overtaken in the women's game a little bit. Or other countries that are trying to catch up. So Portugal are interesting when they're in Portugal. You can't coach a 6-year-old unless you have a UEFA A license. Wow. So suddenly, as a 6-year-old, you're getting this incredible level of education, of football education. So I think, we've already seen it with the men's game, but Portugal should explode over the next decade, and that's where I think that is one of the reasons why we're seeing Spain, England in a final. Well, for the third tournament in a row, really. Mm.
Can I come in on the back of that? I think another thing that both teams have done quite well is starting to have that transitional period in between, say, the World Cup and this Euros. So we're seeing young players like a Michelle Adjumang or a Vicky Lopez coming into the Spanish team, and there's almost less reliance. I know Spain have this abundance of quality in Aitana Bonmati and Alexia Putellas, but Bonmati wasn't available for the first game, and you have Lopez stepping into that role. And I think there's some teams across Europe who've been over-relying on their big stars and are lacking in that quality potentially coming through, and that's going to be a problem for them. You look at maybe the Dutch, there's some teams like that where there's perhaps that over-reliance and they've not maybe brought through enough youngsters quick enough. So it's just interesting that that's the point that you picked up on, Miguel.
Yeah, well, sorry, Miguel.
just even on the star one though, it's interesting because like obviously England naturally put so much stock in Lauren James, who's brilliant, but I suppose maybe people would describe her as a flawed talent in that sense, and you have to kind of work out her position in the team. Whereas Spain have about 7 Lauren James, and they're all on it all the time. Like that, and that doesn't necessarily mean they'll win. It's one match. It's funny actually because this has obviously been a bit of it was more of a discussion in the group stage with England about whether it's better to finish first or second because you avoid Spain until the final. And like people always go on about like, oh, if you're going to win it, you have to take them on at any point. I actually don't agree with that. I think it's better to play Spain in a final because it's one game, heightened tension.
Yeah,
more can just go wrong in a final
for sure.
Tournaments aren't always won with the best team.
No, for sure.
Exactly.
It's funny when you're talking there about Portugal. I dread to think what the FAI are getting up to here. Oh my goodness, by comparison. On Spain then, so they sailed through the group stages, 5-0 against Portugal. That was obviously a very emotional night for the Portuguese. Belgium 6-2, Italy 3-1. Beat the Swiss. And then Germany on Thursday. It was a really intriguing game, and Germany at the death could have nicked it. A brilliant save to take it to extra time. But like really, Spain were in complete control at that stage. They are putting together football that no one else in this tournament puts together. There's a fluency to it. There's a technical aspect to it. There's movement. It's just better than everybody. Like it was credit to Germany for making it difficult for them. But like Rachel, from my point of view, it would have been a travesty if Spain hadn't got through.
Okay, I slightly disagree there. I think Germany exposed Spain's backline, which is an area that's been exposed a couple of times in the tournament. I think, yes, they've sailed through their group stages. I think they were in a group that had teams of lower quality, and yet Italy and Belgium did expose that backline. Switzerland frustrated them for 60 minutes, and Switzerland should not be able to frustrate Spain, but they did. They just didn't have the quality to sustain the game plan that they put together. And I thought Germany, again, after running 107 minutes against France with 10 players, which I think actually really well prepared them for Spain to be playing without the ball, did a pretty good job of frustrating them too. I think if Clara Bull and Hoffman had a bit better decision-making in that final third, it could have been a different story. I definitely wouldn't have called it a travesty if Spain hadn't gotten through.
Yeah, they're just a better team to watch. The point about the backline, I fully accept. But I mean, they frustrated them. I don't really. I mean, good for Germany and good for the Swiss, but I mean, I'm not cheering on the side who are doing the frustrating. I mean, I want to see the best footballers win.
But on the backline point, this goes back to this is you almost call it the one kind of anomaly in the Spanish ideology, because this is the debate that goes back to 2010 really, and the men's team. It's this high pressing, high possession game they play, and the necessity of that is basically a high line where it can become a bit of a high wire act, because it's why you need your centre halves and your pivot player to be so good in those positions, because they have to mop them an awful lot. But by definition, I suppose there are going to be moments you get through. I agree with Rachel. I think Germany actually punched through more. I think Germany were supremely disciplined, and I think it's quite ironic and quite like there's obviously a bit of a kind of a narrative sting to this, in that it was Berger that was caught out for the goal at the end, because I did feel like she's been one of the players of the tournament. That Germany's defensive assurance was bolstered by having her behind her. And what was really striking about the game, I thought, is like where Spain have been brilliant throughout this tournament, has actually been playing in that little kind of pocket of space in behind the centre halves and the goalkeeper. There's so many goals where they get like little 1-2s there, including the kind of key goal in the quarterfinal against Switzerland, whereas they didn't really manage to do that against Germany. I do wonder as well in a game like that how much a bit of angst crept into Spain, because they'd never, like, it's funny, after the game last night they were talking about all the landmarks that this team have achieved. One of them was not getting to a Euro final yet, because of course actually they'd never won a knockout game at all before 2023. But the other was they hadn't beaten Germany, and I do think that played a little bit on the game. That was kind of one thing with the match as well. I think it was obviously Spain's toughest game so far, but it was actually probably their worst performance, because there were long stretches, especially when we got from the second half into extra time, where not that they were passive, but they weren't subjecting to Germany to anything like the intensity that we've seen in other games. And part of that was Germany, but part of that was it just became one of those kind of drawn out knockout ties in that sense. And actually, weirdly, maybe that's exactly what they needed before the final.
Yeah.
I'd also say
Sorry,
I
Rachel.
appreciate wanting the best team to win and the team that plays the prettiest football to win. Totally get that. But if that was the case, what's the point of having a major tournament? Like, teams are going to come up and try and play a counter style of football to that. And if you can't score goals with pretty football and pretty passing, then what's it worth? You know, if a team sets up defensively against you to frustrate you and gets you on the counter attack, do you deserve to win? So while I appreciate we all like watching pretty football, at the end of the day, there are counter tactics to that style of football, and you need to be able to deal with that as well.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I was just glad Spain won. That's the point. Travesty is a strong word to use. I accept that point, but like, anytime I've watched this tournament, anytime Spain are playing, I have watched them because I think they're a joy to watch, and I think pretty football it's kind of a backhanded way of describing it. Like, it's effective football. It's great football. Like, pretty makes it sound like it's kind of toothless. I think just because they're...
Oh, no, not at all. I don't mean it like that.
Yeah. I think they're a brilliant team to watch.
It's beautiful football.
To pick up on the travesty point, and I suppose where the idea of...
I now want to retract travesty. Can I say I low-key was happy they won.
Too late now.
but there is the quote-unquote morality of this. And like, you know, like Xavi Hernandez used to always talk about this before he went to Qatar.
Yeah.
Actually, and after as well.
Yeah.
That, like, because suppose where that dimension comes in, and that what Spain do is basically they take the game on their own terms. They're the ones who are going to impose your game on you. It's trust in their own talent. Whereas the response to that is, of course, reactive. It's not taking the game on your terms. It's you adjusting it. It's not the same trust and talent. Now, but again, that is probably a manifestation of what, like, all the kind of issues we're talking about, like, you know, coaching, player production, talent coming through. And that's where you see it. And if you are kind of a technically inferior team, the obvious, smart and pragmatic move is to, well, come up with some sort of blueprint to frustrate the opposition. And I think that's why it's going to be very interesting to see what Wiegman actually decides on for Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. I think, Rachel, you said it's tournament football. So, like, it is often
like,
the joy
the
watching.
Best team doesn't always win, right? Like, it's the best tournament team.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to Sunday. You know, you see this across all sports. For the team that play the more expansive, and it could be rugby, it could be soccer, you name it, in a final, that's a harder thing to execute than more of a spoiler tactic or a frustrate the opposition tactic. So that feeds into the point you made, Miguel, about, like, if England are going to play Spain, then doing it with the pressure of a final maybe is the place to get them. So for Sunday, Rachel, you're expecting England to come out, keep it tight, frustrate England, and be in with a right good chance here?
I mean, I think it's going to be hard. You know, I think what's been difficult with England is knowing which team is going to turn up. Is it going to be the team that played the Dutch, where they play with confidence and creativity and clinicalness? Is it going to be the team that came out against Sweden that were entirely on the back from the get-go? I think that's what makes it tricky. And also knowing, is Wiegman willing to roll the dice, make some changes, you know, go 3 at the back, put 2 up front, challenge Spain with 2 direct runners, which I think they'd struggle with. I think she's probably not willing to do that from the get-go. I think the likelihood is they're going to try and play it tight for as long as possible and then, you know, bring on those heroic subs.
Yeah. And hope to expose the frailties you mentioned in the Spanish defence, I guess.
Which there are a few, yes.
There are a few. Okay, interesting. Miguel?
I think Spain will win 2 or 3-0. Or sorry, by 2 or 3 goals. I just think, like, I've watched all of their games bar Spain's, or went out all their games bar Spain's opening game, and just, like, I mean, one of the most striking things is basically how, like, England just basically keep getting away with it. Their one convincing performance, I thought, like, without disrespecting Wales, I don't think that really counts because there's such a gap, and obviously Wales, the real kind of achievement was actually getting here. The Dutch were, I suppose this is one of the things we were talking about earlier in terms of kind of the staggered quality. The Dutch were billed as kind of, you know, group of death team, one of the 6 teams as potential winners, and I thought they were absolutely appalling. England won something like 46 out of 48 duels in that game, which shouldn't be happening at that. No matter the kind of, like, the quality difference, they also seemed kind of the Dutch seemed absolutely flummoxed by Russo's movement. So other than that performance, which I think was so contingent on where the Dutch were, England are just constantly getting away with it, and I just feel when so much about the team doesn't really work properly, unless something freakish happens on Sunday, I think that, like, that all this will eventually catch up with them. I mean, like the midfield doesn't work. If you press Kira Walsh, they can't move properly. Stanway, I think, who's by far the most tactically intelligent midfielder. I've been watching her in games, and she often seems kind of like a little bit at sea because she's trying to point to teammates where to go, and they're exposed. Right. And like against that Spanish midfield, I think that's where they eventually get overrun. And unless you have one of those games where Spain somehow don't score, which I think is why it's a final is so important, because suddenly you get to 60, 70 minutes and the psychology starts to have an effect. But yeah, unless it's one of those, or England do come up with something different, I just think Spain will express their superiority. I mean, ultimately, Spain are a better team from 2023. I think England are a worse team. That was 1-0. Maybe that's been a bit too logical about it for something, that is a one-off game.
Yeah. Geez, well, if they lose by 2 or 3 with 12 million people watching at home, then I think Wiegman will have questions to answer. Rachel, you can go first. You can put up your hand in the press conference. I presume you're going.
Yeah, of course. I think it'll be crazy if questions were asked of Wiegman after getting them to the third final and they lost to the world champions. But, that's football, I guess.
Yeah. Are you thoroughly sick of living out a suitcase, or would you like this tournament to go on forever?
Oh, Jesus, no. I'm quite happy for it to end soon. These 9 o'clock kickoffs and extra time and penalties have been an absolute killer.
Yeah. Well, listen, we might catch up next week and kind of make sense of the final, chat about it at some stage. But that was brilliant. Thank you both for coming on. Miguel, you got to run, I know, so we'll say goodbye. And Rachel of Girls on the Ball, people can check out the coverage across the tournament, and Miguel of the London Independent. Thanks a mil to you both. Cheers.